Alright everyone, hello and welcome back to part 2 of our Europa Universalis IV Introductory campaign as Castile, where we will learn and cover basic gameplay concepts. Last time we talked a little bit about the interface, monarch points, monarchs and how monarchies work, though not in too much depth. And today we're going to continue covering more of some of the general things that you should know before we even unpause the game for the first time. So next on our list of pop-ups here, our to-do list as I like to call it, it's telling us we have a truce with Granada starting out, which means we cannot attack them without incurring horrible penalties. So it's telling us that it expires in January of 1448. So after 1448 we will be able to attack them again. And I'll cover why that's important in just a moment after we finish up covering some of the basics. This little banner here is going to show you that we need to build buildings, or that we can build buildings. So it's telling us that we have the ability, and it pops up a list of basically every building in the game, which is tied to something else. This production interface button right here. As you can see, there are multiple different tabs here that lead to everything, but it just quickly takes you to the buildings tab of the production interface with a push of a button. Just because we have the capability of building one building here, and that's going to be this Earth Rampart, which is going to basically make it harder for anyone to siege any of our provinces, or any province that it has it in. As you can see here, we have the Canary Islands, or the Canarias. I can't do Spanish, I'm sorry. But we could build a fort here. And if we mouse over it, it's going to tell us it's going to cost, what the effects are, and then beneath it, it's going to tell us it's going to cost 50 ducats and 10 military power and take 12 months to build. Do we want to do that necessarily? Not really. And I'll explain why briefly. We only make 11 a month, so that's like 5 months worth of income, basically, that we're spending on that. And it's going to cost us monarch points. Now, we get 6 every month because of that advisor we hired, and that means it's basically going to cost us 2 months worth of power to build that there, when really it doesn't seem to be under that much of threat anyway, even though our rival Morocco is here. But we'll get more into war and things of that nature later. Anywho, here we've got a list of a disputed succession, and to be completely honest with you, I don't know why it tends to pop this up so much. It just tells when a nation does not have like an heir that doesn't have a decent claim to the throne. Which means potentially if you royally married into their country and you had more prestige than them, you could theoretically try to take over their country through by pressing a claim with a royal marriage, or do what's called a personal union, where basically a country becomes your permanent ally. It's really complicated to do, and if you want to know more about how that works, I recommend going to the wiki, because it would do a much better job explaining how it works than I ever could. But we're going to go ahead and right-click that, because we know that that's not really relevant to us, so we can kind of clean that up there. Lastly, as we can see here, and this is the important focus of today's episode, we have our missions here. And missions are small goals that the game sets for you, basically, that you can choose from, that have certain requirements and give you certain bonuses. For example, our prestige that we talked about last episode, one mission we have is to improve our prestige, because we need to look prestigious, because we're a world power. So the mission here, mission succeeds when the following criteria are met. Castile have a prestige of at least 50. Our prestige is only 6. And the bonus is that we get an additional stability point. Now, stability, 1 point of stability is really good, because stability only goes up to +3, up to +3, or down to -3. -3 tends to only form when, like you get -3 if you break a truce, for example, and then your country just starts to be flooded with rebels and bad events and issues with legitimacy. So really we want to keep our stability up as high as humanly possible at all times. Now, that being said, we don't want to go too out of our way to raise stability under certain circumstances, because to manually raise stability, we have to spend administrative points, and if we are constantly doing that, then we're not going to be able to advance our technology. And advancing technology is one of, if not the most important things to do in EU4. As a whole, you always want to be technologically ahead of your opponents and the rest of the world at large. Okay, so next we, on our mission list, is form an alliance with Portugal. And that would gain us 10 prestige and gain 25 diplomatic power. So that would be a really good mission that we could take. If we look here, and this is a good chance to explain how diplomacy works, every nation has their own little diplomacy tab where we can look at what religion we are, what our flag looks like, our name, our type of government, kingdom, our leader, the monarch, the heir, and what his stats are. And in our case, we can look specifically at how many diplomatic relations we have, which are like alliances and things of that nature. We'll talk about that later. Diplomatic reputation, which basically is, how renowned is our nation at doing diplomacy. We have a +3, which is really good. And we get an additional +2 from our advisor, so that was a good reason to pick him up. And then lastly is the improved relations stat. I'm not particularly sure how it works. Again, this is another wiki topic, but generally green is good, red is bad. It's one of those things, and it's going to change how people feel about you, more or less. Now, this is ours. This is everything we need to know about our nation. Oh, as well, completely forgot these. What the accepted cultures are. So we accept Castilian culture in our group, and as well as Andalusian, and any other groups in Iberia. We are not going to take as severe penalties if our cultures don't match. How many policies we have active, this is a completely different topic, as well as current stability, prestige, ideas, and tech level. Now this is really important because whenever you right-click on another nation, it'll pop up their diplomacy tab. So we can see here Portugal's leader. They are Catholic. They are a kingdom. Their current leader is only 12. So they've essentially got a regency council which is going to rule for them in the meantime. Now, as you can see, their regency council has an administrative skill of 4, diplomatic skill of 2, military skill of 1. And here is what's important when we're looking at other nations. We've got actual scores that tell how much their country likes our country, and our country likes their country. Now, and then there's how much, basically, these little things here, like the heart and the question mark, that's what the country thinks of us as a whole. And sometimes it can be confusing because a nation might have, like, a -15 opinion of you, but they'll still have the friendly green heart. And basically, what is represented here is the difference between what the rulers of the country think of you and what the people of the country think of you, and the nobility. So, you could very well have a ruler that likes you, but if the people don't like you, then you're going to be unable to do certain actions, such as forming alliances. So, obviously, our opinion as the ruler of Castile is going to be whatever we think of them. Maybe, it'll tell you things like, oh, they don't trust us. Or, oh, they feel threatened by us. But we're human, so we're going to feel that way about everybody anyway. However, our public opinion is going to be completely different, and it's going to depend on certain factors that we decide to engage with in them. If we go to war with them, for example, that's going to lower both our opinions of each other. Just for example. And this is true for any nation. You can see, like, Morocco has the threatened trait towards us, and they have -35 of public opinion towards us. Whereas, see, we could very well be like, we want to ally with Morocco. Say I wanted to ally with Morocco. Well, my people completely disapprove of that because they're a different religion, they're Muslim, and they're our rival. So our people naturally do not like Moroccans. So that's a little bit of how diplomacy works. So finally, our last option for a mission is to finish the Reconquista, which we'll talk about in a little bit, how war works. And basically, we need to own all of Granada, or all of Granada, for the most part. We need to own all of Granada. Yeah, owned by Castile, and the province owner is not in the Muslim religion group. So, yeah, so basically we just have to beat Granada. So that would take, we would have to wait about 4 years to do that. We're going to gain what's called Army Tradition, and lose War Exhaustion for completing that mission. So, it's not really going to be that useful for us right now, but what we can do right now is form an alliance with Portugal, because we've looked at how much they like us. They do like us. And here's a little bit on how diplomacy works in EU4. So, we've got a whole list of different options that we can choose. We have alliance, influence, relations, dynastic actions, covert actions, economy actions, and axis actions. And if we look under alliance actions, we have two options. We can form a coalition against them, or we can offer an alliance with them. Now, if we look here, there's a green check mark next to it, which means that they will accept. It's not like a game like Civilization where it's like, you know, maybe they'll accept, and you kind of have to chance it. In this game, if it's green check mark, and we bring up the offer, and it says yes, they're gonna say yes. Plain and simple. There's no maybes about it or anything. They will accept. And here we can see the reasons why. It will always tell you why. So if it ever says no, you can always mouse over it, and it'll tell you, well, why aren't they going to accept this deal? And that's very important, because things like royal marriages and alliances, especially, you'll want to think about, you know, when you want to form an alliance, you know, are you close enough that you can form the alliance? And if not, you know, can you get it close enough that you can actually form the alliance? So just things like that to think about. And there's a whole different slew of actions that we can do here. You know, crazy things like enforcing peace between two countries, offering vassalization. We can proclaim independence on a country if they're smaller than us and if we're powerful enough. We can do things like embargo other countries, send gifts and subsidies. There are all kinds of options when it comes to diplomacy. So, that being said, we are going to take the Form the Alliance with Portugal mission. We're going to right-click on Portugal, Alliance, Offer Alliance. Click Yes. Now, this over here, the outliner, this is one of the most important things to have open in EU4 basically at all times. Because it's going to tell you what your diplomats are up to, what your merchants are up to, if they're doing anything useful. And as you can see, our diplomat is going to take 3 days to go to Portugal to do the alliance. And then it's also going to talk about our armies. So as you can see here, it says the name of the army, where they're located, what's in the army, what type of units there are. It's just so useful to have this on hand, as well as our navies. And this tab is going to have all sorts of information throughout the entire game for as long as we're playing. So it's just really, really important to have the outliner open at all times. Okay, so we have sent the alliance offer to Portugal, and that will conclude our mission. Now, when we want to talk about what to do next, before we unpause for the first time, it's been 2 episodes, we have we have what are called national decisions. And national decisions are basically things you can either approve or not approve, that are going to give you bonuses and or penalties to your country. Blue decisions are going to be small things, like, for example, national unrest +1, missionary strength +1%. So just small things like that, and it tells you what the requirement is for those actions. So these two are going to take administrative technology level 8. We're at level 3, so we're a bit far away from the Act of Uniformity and the Suffragan Bishop Act. But the green decisions are usually long-term goals that you can kind of strive for. And they involve anything from forming a new nation. So as you can see, we're Castile, but we have the option to form the Spanish nation in 2 different ways. Both of which are going to give a different set of bonuses for each. So we can form it militarily. To form it militarily, we basically have to conquer Granada, and we need to take provinces from our neighbor Aragon as well. So we'll need to take Barcelona, right here. We will need to take Aragon itself, which is right here, which is not their capital, strangely enough, you would think. Valencia and Granada we already talked about, and Valencia is right here. So we need to take these 3 provinces, as well as have an administrative tech of 10 and have Granada, and make sure that none of the provinces are owned by Granada at the time. So that's our long-term goal. And EU4 is, a lot of people describe it as a sandbox game because really you can do, within the rules of the game, almost anything you want. But our long-term goal should be to form the Spanish nation. So everything that we do is going to focus around that, and you should always be thinking about that as you're playing EU4. What are we going to do? What's our long-term goal? And then set goals that are going to help you achieve that goal. So if we want to form the Spanish nation militarily, we'll want to obviously get our military tech up, because that's going to give us the fighting advantage we're going to need to defeat Aragon. Just as an example. Meanwhile, if we wanted to form the Spanish nation diplomatically, we would need to have the following: admin for short, administrative technology at least 10. Not one province is owned by Granada, and then Aragon needs to be governed by Castile, or is a vassal of us. So we could potentially defeat them in a war, and then just vassalize them. And then we can pass that diplomatic law, and then we basically just we inherit all of Aragon and become the nation of Spain. So I think for this game, the goal we're going to set, we're going to try to form Spain diplomatically rather than militarily. So our goal is going to be to first take Granada back, and then our next goal is going to be to try to vassalize Aragon, because that's part of our goal. But we'll need to be at administrative tech 10 first before we do that. Now, there are going to be some complications with this along the way, but we'll get to that as we get to that. Okay, so we've covered basically a lot of the interface. We've covered our government and some of the basics about that, and advisors and monarch points. We've talked about diplomacy. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other options here. This tab is going to show you your economy. Everything you need to know from what you make every month, what you spend every month, your total income and total expenses. Inflation is a thing in EU4, and it's a flat value. So if you have 1% inflation, everything is going to cost 1% more, and you're going to make 1% less money every month. Because your income will be going down by that much because of inflation. Here you can also mess with what's called maintenance. Basically, if you're not at war, you can just lower your maintenance, and basically what it'll do, I'm not going to do it because it'll mess with our troops, but if you lower it, it will lower what's called your unit morale, but give you a lot more money every month. So basically, if you get attacked and your units have no morale, your units rout instantly and are often completely destroyed as a result. So that being said, that's the economy tab. The trade tab, we won't discuss too much, but just know that it's there. The technology tab right here, we can see what tech group we are. If you're playing as any non-Western nation, you can mouse over this and it'll tell you how many more points it's going to cost you to get your technology. Now, it may seem a little unfair, but in real life, the West was always ahead of the rest of the world when it came to technology. So to simulate that, every other nation has technological penalties, basically, and to account for that historical accuracy, I suppose. For example, Morocco, and you can look at the diplomacy tab, and it has it here as well, what technology group they are. And Muslim technology technologies cost 40% more monarch points. So, for example, if we mouse over this group, National Ideas, in the second paragraph it says you need 568 power and have 56 available. And we expect to have it done on June 1st, 1453. So, if we were a Muslim technology group, it would cost us 40% more points. So 40% of 568. So you can begin to see how hard it is to keep up as a Muslim nation, especially if you don't have any good advisors or good leaders. Alright, that's going to wrap up this episode. In the next episode we will cover the rest of these tabs, and then talk about potentially going to war and what that entails. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.